recently, as I've come to a number of our sits on Sunday and enjoyed the different Dharma talks of different teachers, it's like being invited into somebody's living room, the living room of somebody's mind. So it's something of a. It struck me with. It's a privilege, I think, to be invited into the living room of somebody's mind, and and sit and have a discussion with somebody's inside, and that's what we're doing today. And so I actually approach that with a little bit of humility. Who am I to presume to have anything to say to you? I'm so struck by, I have been reading the old the Chan teachers for 2 decades. And over and over, one is struck with how they just say it over and over and over and over. You can't put it into words. It just can't be done. It cannot be done. And yet, we never stop trying, do we? I mean, so here, this one is, the teacher or somebody sitting here yapping. Well, this is what it is. It's the right. It's the 7th factor of enlightenment, the 8-fold path. It's this and this and this, right? And then in the same way, it invites our sort of discriminative thinking, intellect to say, well, I get that. I don't get that. And, so the Zen teachers very often refer to it as dousing people with dirty water. So I'm going to fill this bowl up with dirty water, if I may, right? And then I'm just going to douse us with, because that's in a certain way exactly what they mean. I mean, and it's really kind of serious. It's funny, but is it really funny? If the words are really, and to some extent, taking you further away from reality, further away from the truth, if that's what the words are really doing, what the hell am I doing sitting here flapping my lips? And I do think that it's, to say that it's a conundrum is an understatement. So I wanted to say one more thing about the dousing us. And by the way, if I'm dousing you all with dirty water, obviously it's going to slosh back, right? I'm not going to be so successful at getting it out that way. It's going to, get on my nice, pretty purple shirt here, I think, which I would not want to do. But to some extent, I think it's a tremendously brilliant statement that words are like dirty water. Even the clearest, cleanest water. They're not the truth. They're not reality. They come from the discriminating, dichotomistic, and dual mentality that we're all stuck with. So the other thing that I would say in terms of the old Zen teachers, and it's like one of the most beautiful and brilliant metaphors. Words that are truly skillful are like fingers pointing towards the moon. And they say, don't confuse the finger with the moon. The finger is verbal. The finger is the words. The moon is that which the words can only hint at. They can only point in a certain direction. Right? We get that, right? Bradley does. So I want to spend a few minutes trying to have words that point a little bit towards a moon that is beyond words. So I wanted to talk a little bit about mindfulness today. And that's a kind of been inspired and stimulated by, first of all, I've got this amazing article on the internet, which I sent to a few people, and if anybody is really interested, I would be happy to we could have Travis. It's really quite disturbing, or no, I would say it's provocative. It's a kind of a discussion of how mindfulness has somewhat been taken over by the middle class in America, and has become sort of like, the soup du jour, sort of, right? And they or like a corporate. They call it now corporate mindfulness. And by the way, we just put it on our website. I've resisted this for many, many years, and I've watched centers, using this as a way to make money, and I kept saying and arguing and fussing to our board, we need to do this, we need to do this, we need to do this. And people kept saying, well, okay, let's do it. Then I kept thinking, I don't want to do this, I don't want to do this. Because there's a part of me that is very resistant to that, which I will explain in just a moment. So this is really quite, the article is actually much better than what I'm just going to, because this is really quite provocative. But he says mindfulness has gone corporate, as I will now share with the second thing that I am. Why has America appropriated Buddhism for capitalistic ends? Now this is a very political statement, by the way, so don't get your dander up. Most information about mindfulness is disseminated by white people in media controlled by white people for the primary consumption of white people. And so then the guy goes on and he explains how, from his perspective, this level of Buddhism in America has become primarily sort of taken over by the middle class, and with an agenda of, someone said that they referred to it as networking was just a slight dressing of Buddhism. So that's one thing, and as I said, it's quite a provocative article, but it's also a political. It has a real political bias, which I'm not wild about. So the other thing I want to, but anyway, this is kind of like, I guess I'm sharing this with you because this is sort of like a raging controversy in Buddhist circles, right? About mindfulness. Has it been taken over? Is it basically, like the white middle class? So then it's not really being really presented to minorities and blah blah blah. And there's more than one center that I can think of who they really, really are focusing on it, trying to make mindfulness available to other minority groups. The whole tenor of this article, which, as I said, in some ways I actually enjoyed, left out what I thought was perhaps the most important aspect of, and the most problematic part of trying to understand mindfulness, and which is what I want to talk about a little bit today. But I just wanted to say again, so it's not possible to put mindfulness into words. What is mindfulness? So we're starting workshops. We're going to teach everyone to be mindful, right? And so it's like we're going to use mindfulness to reduce stress, mindfulness to work on depression, mindfulness to focus. And then I just got this week, for getting my CEUs as a therapist, I just got this thing. It's called Calming the Brain Through Mindfulness. It's a wonderful thing, right? I mean, it's calm. They're everywhere. Therapists in America, if you can't do mindfulness now, you might as well get out of the business. Therapists, people, you go to inside LA, just to take an MS, mindfulness based stress reduction, or whatever it is, MSMBT, bar, DP. So this says what you will learn, identify how anxious children and adults have impaired brain development. I don't want to go on to that. The neurobiology of mindfulness, investigating the social, emotional benefits of mindfulness, mindfulness, and emotional regulation. I mean, it goes on and on. It's quite impressive. And this is like, I get these all, once a month. They're all over the place. So it's here. And as I said to Carrie, who has been coming in sort of our interim director, I said, it's got legs. Mindfulness has legs, meaning we're just seeing the beginning of it. It's here to stay. And is that good? Is that bad? Well, now there are many arguments about whether that's. Some people are saying it doesn't really matter if we've gotten rid of the Buddhist part of it, that it's still quite important and wonderful to be able to calm your mind, to focus on, and to improve your function. And as you all know, I think I've mentioned to you before that it is really a fact that it's true that the Pentagon has started a program of working with mindfulness, to hone the skills of, I suppose, soldiers. How to kill someone mindfully, for instance. Skillfully and mindfully. So I guess what I wanted to say is I wanted to just present you a few ideas about a minority view of what mindfulness is. And this is a minority view. This is not going to be what you will be learning if you take a corporal workshop, even with us, let alone with Inside LA or Spirit Rock.
You're not referring to race, are you? In the minority view.
Well, hold on. So first of all, I wanted to promise you that you're not going to walk out of here with a better definition of what mindfulness is, because I can't do that. But I wanted to read first. I'm going to read to you the most famous thing that was written by the Buddha. So everyone is going to know what mindfulness is after I read what he said, right? He said, "Hear, monks." He's talking about watching the breath. "Hear, monks," or nuns, "having gone to the wilderness, a foot of a tree, or an empty building, a monk sits down with legs crossed and body erect." Some of us have legs crossed. Establishing mindfulness to the fore, and some people define that as the forefront, or even to the front. Always attentive, he breathes in with mindfulness and breathes out with mindfulness. Breathing in long, he knows I am breathing in long. Breathing in short, he knows I am breathing in short. Well, did that help you a lot? Do you got it? Did you have it now? Do we now know what mindfulness is? What he says is that you establish it in front. Well, thanks a lot, Buddha. Thank you so much. So now we know what it is. We establish it in front. What does that mean? And there are some definitions of that some people define that, like the Pali word, it could also mean around. It could actually mean establishing it around. I kind of like that. Right? So let me ask you this moment. What's it like for you as you're listening to establish mindfulness in front? Allison? You don't have to answer that. Let's leave it alone. But I mean, to consider that though. I mean, as you're sitting, the Buddha is suggesting that you can establish it in the fore. Well, we're not doing that yet. I think that I'll try to blab fast, and so we can get to that. So, but I mean, we're invited. So the problem is, it's never been defined. I've never read a good definition of it. So I'm going to give you like a few, as I said, these are kind of hints. And I want to actually then go to what I think is the second thing out of mindfulness, which I think is extremely helpful. Mindfulness is the first factor of awakening. That's pretty clear. Whatever awakening is, it begins with the element of mindfulness. So, according to the Buddha, there are 7 factors of awakening. There are 7 factors. I call them little seeds in the psychic garden. There are 7 little seeds in the psychic garden of each person, each of you, including me. And we were born with them. It's our heritage. It's not like you have to go to a store and buy them. You don't have to go to a garden store and say, I'd like to buy this factor of mindfulness, or the second or the third or the fourth seed. We were born with them. They are part of what the mind is. The first factor of the mind is mindfulness. So, as you all know that I have said, you've heard me say this many, many times, whatever mindfulness is, it doesn't have a dog in the hunt. Yes? It doesn't have an agenda. It doesn't have a purpose for what it's doing. I think for most of us, right off the bat, that's extremely hard. And then if you go to, to a corporate program, and I don't mean this truly, at this point at least, I'm not meaning this in a disparaging way. We think of it as that mindfulness is about calming your mind, right? Or mindfulness is, it's about getting something for it, right? Learning a skill, improving your function. That cannot possibly be what mindfulness is, because mindfulness has no agenda. What has an agenda is what we call, in the West, an ego. Me. I have an agenda. Allison has an agenda. Mary has an agenda. We all have an agenda, as long as we have this little thing inside that says, I need to do this next. I want this, I need to do this next. So, but in terms of the extraordinary difficulty of understanding what mindfulness is, according to the Buddha's teachings, it doesn't have an agenda. It just sees. It just watches. It doesn't watch with any purpose. It doesn't watch to say, well, I better check this out to see, see if she likes me on it. Tearing over there. It doesn't have any purpose. It just sees. It's seeing clearly. So this brings me to what I would say is the minority view. I think it is a minority view, and I think it is sadly becoming an extremely minority view. I think that's a strange syntax, because we're getting more and more and more in this idea of what mindfulness can give us, what I can get out of being mindful, right? So it's like, again, we're putting a purpose to it. Jung once said that in terms of Western culture, I've never forgotten this and I love this. He said one of the worst sentences or the ideas that has done most of us in is this old German saying, where there's a will, there's a way. Right? Where there's a will, there's a way. So if I can just have enough will, I can do it, right? So how the hell do you have will with mindfulness? Well, I'm going to establish mindfulness to the front. You're just shot out of the saddle. It's hopeless. So then I'm going to go to a workshop and I'm going to learn how to be mindful. It's not possible. So, so I came up with this sentence. I think this was just in our little Beginners 2 course. So this is like, after we've been studying mindfulness, and so then I just sort of came up with that little phrase. There is no me in mindfulness. What is it? Was it Phil Jackson said there's no I in team, or is it me in team? I forget what his sentence was. But for sure, there's no me in mindfulness. how do you if you imagine that mindfulness has me in it, right? So if you say, Marta says, well, I was really mindful, Victor, right? Or Mark, I was really mindful. You've already said something that is absolutely impossible and not true. Mindfulness is. There's no way that I can be mindful. Mindfulness can be present in this. But to say I am mindful, or I was mindful, or I am studying mindful, or I'm trying to be mindful, we have put the word me in mindful. All right, so that just takes me to the next little thing that I want to say. I think that the hardest thing for all of us, every one of us in this room, I really probably think it's everyone in this room, even including John. I think the hardest thing for us is to imagine that it's possible to be mindful without me. Does anyone want to sort of like discuss that,
Who would discuss that? You can't.
It's true.
You mean on a society level? On a community level, on a society level? Is that
No, I'm talking on just an individual level, right, at this moment. Just, right, I mean, I'm just saying that the idea of that there can be me, Victor, in mindfulness is an impossibility because mindfulness has no ego. It's not based in an ego. Me is by definition ego. So, but I think the other thing that's so hard is to even conceptualize the idea that of anything without me in it. There's me in everything, right? Me is sitting here. Me is sitting there, right? Me is looking at you. Me, you, right? Me is everywhere, and this is like almost like the hidden little dirty secret in Buddhism, right? Meaning that the Buddha absolutely said it's false. There ain't no me in anything, and we just say, well, that's probably true, but never mind. So the me just goes right on, right? Well, I do agree with that. Me agrees with that. It's absurd. I mean, because the bottom line is, and this is sort of like you can see there's a little animation here. This is the core teaching of the Buddha. This is what it's all about. And it's only what it's all about. He said there is no me in this entity. And so then we sit here and say, well, I'm just, and we do not agree. We disagree. And what is it that disagrees? It's called me. Well, that's a very fine thing he says. There's no me. Well, who is this if there's no me? And so we're down the merry road. In the next 3 weeks, we're going to have Jokai is going to give 3 Sundays, and I think that probably the Zen tradition is probably the one tradition that most exclusively works on dispelling this illusion of me. That's my opinion. The Theravada approaches that also, but it's very easy to get lost in all the words. And so that was just a sidebar. So I wanted to say this. So if we all begin with this idea that the first factor of awakening, which is sati, which probably means more literally remembering. There's the Sanskrit word probably means remembering. I mean, we've defined it as sati as mindfulness, but there's no. I mean, like the Buddha didn't use that word; he used the word sati. So he said placing sati before you, right? And then we all say, well, then what does he mean by sati, right? Because it's never really defined. But there is one word that more specifically means remembering. How many people in this room have had an insight that you've forgotten? How many people have had an insight, maybe like every day, that you can't remember? I mean, it's an astonishing thing. If you think about your lifetime, if you think about the course of your life, I mean, I could really get sad as I say this, because, I'm not going to. Well, I might. I have sat with people for 25 years who have had lights go off over and over and over, and I have been so excited. Oh, my God. He finally sees it. And the next week, it's like it never happened. I have to remind them and say, oh, Ron? It's astonishing. It's astonishing. It is perhaps our most universal feature. We can't remember the past. Not in terms of the realness of our own inner growth. We don't seem to be able to hold it. What is that about? Go back to that word, sati means remembering. That's what it means. So in the Upanishad, there's one of my favorite Upanishad. You all know when we say lead us from the unreal to the real, that's one of the Upanishads, right? I love that. But the Asha Upanishad, the last verse, the last part of it, let's see if I wrote this down. Maybe I didn't. Doesn't matter. Looks like I didn't. Okay, so when they say the word will, they're not using that, what Jung said about, where there's a will, there's a way. When they use the word will, they actually talk about like the will actually means like the divine force in us, the divine force that moves us to do things. And it's also, I think, can also be used as mind. So here's the very last little verse in the Aisha Upanishad. The breath of things is an immortal life, but of this body, ashes are the end. Now this is it. So it says, O mind, remember that which was done. Remember. O mind, remember that which was done. Remember. Oh, if we could remember. If we could remember what we have learned over the course of our work. I think that's what sati is. I think sati is that thing that brings us back, right? It's that remembering of what we're doing. I think the Buddha said, your work, you're going to like this, your work is to discover your work. Isn't that wonderful? Your work is to discover your work, and then with all your heart to give yourself to it. How many people have discovered their work? We got a winner over here. And then to give your heart to it. So now I'm just almost finished, and then you can douse some dirty water on me. I love that. It just strikes at the ego, doesn't it? If you think about it. Who's going to say, oh, well, no, I'm not. This is not dirty water. This is my intellect. These are words. These are thoughts. So if you come with this, if you kind of really are kind enough to sort of memorize this little mantra of VB, that there is no me in mindfulness. If you start with the idea that awakening cannot even occur with a sense of me, it can't happen. If there's an awakening moment, any moment in your day, and there are plenty of them, believe me, every day there are plenty of them. If there is if something wakes up just for a second, there's no me that woke up. It was mindfulness. That's what woke up. So according to the teaching, something else comes out of that awakening moment. And it's called the second factor of mindfulness. So I'm going to go through all 7 now. This will take the next 45 minutes. So anyway, I'm not going to go through all 7 factors of enlightenment, but I'm going to talk a little bit about number 2, because in some ways number 2 is so crucial. Number 1, but also from what I just said about number 1, this is clear. It helps you to really understand why it's so confused. Number 2, if there is a factor of awakening that happens, if there's a moment of awakening, and whatever it is, it could be 2 seconds, 3 seconds, as we sit, but out of a moment of awakening, there is a natural impulse towards investigation. It just is natural. It's called investigation of Dharma. That's what it's called, is a Dharma Vikaya is the fancy word for it. But what it means is that it is natural for mindfulness to just be interested in reality. Now, this is what we confuse, because if we hear the word investigation, Taryn, Henri, Teresa, if I hear the word investigation, I immediately think of the word me. I'm investigating. I have an agenda. Why am I investigating? Something got my curiosity. I've got to figure this out. So I go to Sherlock Holmes. I mean, I've always said, when I think of the word investigation, I immediately think of Sherlock Holmes, with this little, looking magnifying thing. It's so hard for us to imagine that investigation comes out of this not me, that it flows naturally from a mindful state. Mindfulness just looks at what is. It's not like I have an agenda, right? And that's why it can be so incredibly powerful, because it's pure. I mean, if you want to call it, like what is a pure scientific investigation? It's right when there is no contamination in the investigation, no hidden agenda, right? I'm not trying to prove something, right? I am absolutely trying to just simply look at what is. That's what mindfulness does. That's the beginning of wisdom. That's where wisdom comes for us. Prajna. There's no me in wisdom. So the other thing is like if there's 7 factors of mindfulness, right, that begins with there is no me, what happens to number 2? There's no me. Number 3, there's no me, right? Investigation. Energy is the third thing that comes out of investigation. There's no me in it. It's just energy, friends. Right? That's all it is. It's just energy. It's not like me energetic. It's just energy. And it just goes on and on through tranquility, through concentration, through even eventually equanimity. This is not something that's being taught in most workshops. Plus, it's problematic. Go into we can't have this on the web. Go into a corporation, right? So you're teaching mindfulness, and out there, and God bless everybody. But how far am I going to get along when I say? And by the way, there's no me in mindfulness. Well, can you look at see the faces of the employees? What? Thanks a lot. This is why I really stepped away from it for years. So I'm going to try to figure out a clever way to do this, but I don't know how I'll do it yet. So anyway, I think that I'm finished. Not even been 30 minutes. Let's see if if I left anything out. I probably did. So the Zen teachers, it's really interesting. They really talk about faith, and it's a funny thing, right? Because we've been drawn to Buddhism because a lot of us have been fairly injured by faith, right? And then there's a tendency to think about Buddhism. Well, that's not about faith, That's about in the sense of belief, but. Of course, the Buddha was famously said, he said, you don't need to, if you bite into an apple, you don't have any, faith about whether it's sweet or sour. You just, you experience the truth of it. There, many teachers will say, that when you drink water, you know that it's cold, or if it's hot. So the reason why I'm bringing that up is that there is this element of, I think that the idea that the Buddha said that you're only going to be free, I'm just making this up. He did say this, but he didn't say it this way. You'll only be free when you get rid of me. You'll only be free. I made that up. I've never said that before. You will only be free when you get rid of me. Now, you know something? The only way to get towards that is faith. There's no other way you can get to that, right? You can't logically come that, because what is logical is me. Right? The me is going to say, well, let me just think about that. You can only be free if you get rid of me. Well, just think about it. What an absurdity thing. You're saying, you can only be free if you get rid of me. Well, that's probably true. It's a ridiculous, it's like it's chasing its tail, right? That's all it's doing is chasing its tail. So what I'm saying to you, and I'm suggesting to you is, and I believe this with utmost profundity, you have to have faith. You have to find some place of faith in yourself that says, well, I don't understand that. I can't understand what that means. I cannot understand that. It makes no sense to me. How could there be no me? That very thing that's thinking is me, right? But that's true. We're stuck with that thought. How could there be no me? Okay. But the only thing that gives you any wedge is this faith that, I've read these, I believe these stories. I believe when I study about these people, their lives were transformed. That's faith. You look at the Dalai Lama and you have faith that there's something, amazing that happened to this creature or not. But I'm saying that you can't get there by logic. You can't get there by intellectual discriminatory thought or concept. You can't get there by that statement, you can only be free if you get rid of or if you lose me. Only faith will do that for you. So I would like you to consider having a little faith.